So I'm just remembering when I was in 8th grade, we moved down to Washington, D.C. for 2 years, and my dad took me through the National Gallery of Art. I grew up in Cleveland, and there's a Cleveland Art Museum, which is wonderful, but I used to get really bored. But when we went to the National Gallery of Art, my dad came along, and he took one class in college about art history, and so, of course, I loved it because he made it into a game. He would tell me about different paintings, different styles, and then he would cover up the names and say, who did this painting? So it was like, so going to the National Gallery of Art became like a game show. But so I'm saying this because this was when I was in 8th grade, and he was getting it from a class he took. So this is decades old information and never returned to in 40 years. So I might be wrong. Don't crucify me for all those of you who know art better, because most of you do. But this is what I remember. So when he was talking about artists, how painting is involved, that for a long time painting was just flat. There was no dimensionality to it. And then as it evolved, more and more light was understood, and there was shading and nuance. There was some painter, I have no idea who it was, I just have a Dutch painter, but I don't know if that's actually true, that in all their paintings there's like a little light coming through on the side of the painting. You can always find, I knew who that artist was because they'd have light coming through. But just having shades and dimensionality made the art more real and alive. And I was thinking about this in terms of oneness. Sometimes when we talk about oneness, and I have done this, it's almost like we make it very two-dimensional and not real. Like there's the invisible realm, and then there's the physical realm, and there's just, it's like the analogy often is, it's the canvas. The oneness is the canvas upon which something is painted, or the movie screen upon which a film is pouring out. But in fact, the oneness isn't just the canvas, the oneness is the paint. It's all the colors, it's the paintbrush, it's the person painting. That it's a multi-dimensional experience. It's not just a two-dimensional flat experience. And that's really important for us to remember, that when we're talking about oneness, it's full and alive through and as our whole life. We are multi-dimensional beings. We're not flat beings. Here's our material self, and then behind us is this invisible. We're multi-dimensional beings. We have 3 bodies: physical body, energy body, and idea body. Right now, there's so much happening within just us individually, collectively, in the billions and billions of universes and galaxies. There's so much happening, and the oneness is all of it. It's all of it, and yet beyond. So it's really to get into the extraordinariness of what we mean by oneness and get out of our sort of flat, very sort of flatland concept of oneness into a full and rich concept. But it's still a concept. It can still seem like a concept. The way I would say is, so we know that the most powerful thing, because we talk about concepts as if they're not real, but to understand that concepts represent ideas. And ideas are the most powerful thing in the cosmos. Every one of us has an idea body. We can't see it, but we can tap into an idea. Now, an idea then mixed with energy, idea, wow, that energy starts wrapping. Now we can start feeling that idea. We get a vibrational frequency of that idea, and then it pops out into the physical realm. And so every one of us is part of the psh. And that's what oneness is. It's that whole thing, the ideas, the energy, and the psh. But the power is not in the psh. That's not where the power is. So if we're, the stuff that's happening out here, it's part of the oneness, but it's not the source of the power. That's just all different things happening, and where they talk about, you're getting swayed back and forth by what's happening in the physical realm, because sometimes it's over here, sometimes it's over there. And if your only reality is what you can see, taste, touch, hear, and smell, if your only reality is that which is manifestation out there, you're going to not feel very powerful. And even energetically, because we're energy bodies, it's very responsive. And so if our attention is always on the physical world, our energy starts to get very reactive because we're always responding energetically even to this physical world. But when we start tapping into the ideas, Those sweet, sweet ideas. There's a peace that's there. Because in the realm of idea, there's no opposite. There's nothing pushing against it. There's only peace. And that peace is the most powerful idea there is. That love, the wholeness, the oneness. This is an idea of such power that it birthed into manifestation all these billions of galaxies. That's how powerful an idea is. It can birth and has birthed and will continue to birth galaxies upon galaxies upon galaxies. It has birthed this beautiful Milky Way galaxy. It has birthed this beautiful Earth and this whole evolutionary process. It has birthed each and every one of us into creation. So when we talk about this oneness and it feels conceptual, let us remember that everything that we are is a birthing of this idea into form. The same thing that birthed the galaxies birthed us and is doing that every moment. So we want to be clear about the difference between truth and facts. So facts are about what's happening out there. So we can measure that. We can see, taste, touch, hear, smell. It's the manifest world. Facts have a truth to them. We don't ever want to deny that there are facts. So the facts right now, there's this election coming in, and there's a lot of stuff around the election. That's a fact. We don't want to pretend that that's not true. We don't want to go, oh, no, there's not, it's all good. No, there's a fact. There's a lot happening. A lot of violent things have been said. We can't pretend that there's not this incredible agitation. It's a fact, but it's not the truth. In our teaching, we recognize, because that's all happening out here in the physical manifestation, but up here, in that beautiful presence of the divine idea, there's only the one power and the one presence and the one light. And there's nothing agitating. There's nothing against it. It is always good. There's no duality. It's not good and bad. It's just infinite goodness. Even our little human goodness is nothing compared to this infinite goodness. Our little beauty, our little love is nothing compared to this infinite love. And so the power comes when we align ourselves with truth more than facts. We don't deny the facts. We recognize them and we handle them on a human level in the way that we need to. We show up and we vote. That's part of the human condition of which we are participating. But inwardly, we're doing that conscious work of knowing the truth. So I just want us to get a little taste of it so it seems a little less abstract. So I don't want you to close your eyes. No closing your eyes allowed. Because it's going to seem like a meditation practice, but it's not. I want you to, in this moment, just notice what you're noticing. Anything that you're seeing, looking around, hearing, feeling, inside what's going on. You might be paying attention to this talk. You might be thinking about your grocery list. Who knows? You might be having memories of past times where you've heard talks similar to this. You might be thinking about, oh my gosh, the election's coming up. Just notice. And don't welcome all of it. We're not editing at all. Just with your eyes open, both externally and internally, just notice all the things that are arising. You noticing? You don't have to pay attention to your breath. You don't have to do anything special. Just notice. Now, when we notice, we don't edit. Noticing notices everything. It's going to notice the good things. I remember a couple weeks ago, the reason why I'm not using the headset is because there was a buzz to it. I didn't notice it. For Jack, who's very sound-oriented, it drove him crazy. He was constantly noticing it. We're always noticing, and what we notice is different, but it picks up everything. It picks up everything, the stuff that's bad and agitating, the stuff that's good. It doesn't delineate. Like the sun shines on everybody alike, this noticing is happening. So right now, you're still noticing. Now we're going to do an exercise together. Again, keep your eyes open. You ready? You ready? I'm going to say 3, 2, 1. And when I get to 1, we're all going to do this together. When I say 1, we're going to stop noticing. Okay? Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1. Stop noticing. It's impossible, right? You can't ever stop noticing, because this noticing, or we call awareness, has been happening all the time, your entire life. You're always noticing. You have never stopped noticing from your entire existence, and you will do this until you transcend into your next dimension, and even then the noticing will continue. It is timeless and spaceless. This noticing is happening all of the time through you, right now, all the time. That noticing, if you just take a moment and just pay attention, what is it that's noticing through me? Like, what is it that notices? We can't see that part. I can't turn and look, I can't. There's nothing to see. But we know it. We know, and when we feel that noticing and we're becoming more conscious of it, we might say it's like this because it's so vast. It has no borders. It has no limitations. There's no walls. The thing that you're noticing, that's noticing through you, is the same thing that's noticing through me. It's not a separate power that's noticing. So there's no walls to it. And yet it includes all of us individually, what we're choosing to notice, where we choose to place our attention. But the noticing itself is equal. It's always available to everything that's happening in the earth. We might compartmentalize with our attention, but it doesn't. And it's always there. This is what the divine presence is. When we say the one power, one presence, that's it. This is it. You can connect with it at any moment of the day. As soon as you remember, oh yeah, I'm noticing things. Oh, the thing that's noticing through me, I can allow it to move through me. I can make choices from this place of oneness, because the thing about this oneness, this is what's so cool. This presence that's noticing through us, how fearful is it about this election that's coming up? Not even remotely. It is fearless. There's nothing in this physical world that could ever limit this noticing presence that is us. That is us, not just something that we experience. The more we connect with it, the more we realize, oh, this is us, this awareness that we're moving through. Nothing can ever limit it, hurt it. We are always safe in it, always safe in this one power, this one presence. We are always safe in the oneness, and that oneness is more intimate and more alive within us than even our breath. Because our breath someday will end, but this awareness that we are will not. That's eternal. How you feeling? Feels good, huh? So as we move through this time of election, we don't want to pretend, we don't want to do spiritual bypass and pretend that there's not agitating things, to be things that we can be afraid of. This might happen. None of it we don't know. We don't know anything what's going to happen. It could absolutely go smooth. All the fears were overblown, and it just dissolves into harmony and peace. And next week we'll be like, oh, what were we worried about? It was fine. That could happen. There can be things that happen that we don't want to happen, that agitate us, that might hurt not maybe us, but our friends, or they could hurt us. This happens in life all the time. All of us who've been on a spiritual journey for many years, very painful, challenging things do happen. We're not immune to challenging and painful and difficult things. It's how we respond to them. And that's where the spiritual part comes in. I love that reading from Ernest Holmes today, because he says something that's so interesting, I thought, is that it caught me. He said, you don't know the truth if you don't practice it when the times are the hardest. And he said, and sometimes, he didn't say sometimes, he said it's the most satisfying time. The most satisfying time to practice oneness. And I had to keep thinking about that. That's the most satisfying time to practice oneness, is during the difficult times. Because when it's good, we can sort of sense that we did it, we created it, our human self, and there's that feels good, but there's nothing better than feeling connected to that divine oneness. And when we realize of myself, I cannot do this, there has to be something much more powerful in me, through me, and as me. In me, through me, and as me. This one power, this one presence that is infinitely aware, that is always present, that is always loving itself into creation, that is always giving itself into creation. That is what I have to turn to allow to move through me, to allow the miracles to happen. And when we align with that, that's when we're at our highest level of joy, our highest level of love, our highest level of connection and freedom and peace and all that is whole, perfect, and complete. That is the greatest grace that we can feel. And sometimes those most challenging and difficult times demand it of us to move into that space. When things are going well, we might not need that demand. We got it covered. I got it. I'm good. But bam. And when we're in that space, we realize a joy and a peace we didn't even come close to experiencing when everything was good. Because even the good of this world is nothing compared to the good of the divine. Nothing compared to the divine oneness. Ernest Holmes, for those of you who don't know, because I know we have some people who are new, he wrote his first book in 1926, and then the Science of Mind textbook came out in 1938. He was very prolific. He wrote a lot, started the Institute. What was happening in American history at that time? We had the Great Depression in 1929. Lasted for years. We went from the Great Depression into World War II. It wasn't just a year or so of bad times, and it wasn't just like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable. It was serious bad times, not just to individuals, but to the collective. The Great Depression in our country and the World War was impacting everyone on this. I can't say everyone, but probably most people on this planet were impacted by the world wars, World War I and World War II. And he's writing about principles and practicing principles of oneness, of wholeness, of beauty, of harmony, that there is no opposite. He had to dig deep to get to those places. It didn't just happen. He refers to all the time of just spending hours just contemplating this oneness, because when we talk about it, it's more real than the chairs upon which we sit. I love that phrase, because that's when we start to experience this, we start to realize, oh, this isn't just some idea, conceptual, abstract idea that has no basis in reality. When we align with it and we feel that awareness that is right here now, you're noticing, still noticing, right? Did anyone stop noticing? Just curious. We're still noticing that presence and that power, and when we're aligned with that, that's the power. That's the place. That's the safest place to be. And that's what he was practicing over and over and over again in the midst of collective despair and pain. Isn't that remarkable? What a remarkable example. Joel Goldsmith, who's another one of my spiritual teachers, he also teaches New Thought. He had just become a practitioner of these principles and was practicing them, and the Great Depression happened, the 1929 stock market crash, and he lost everything. He had no money. He had no home. He was homeless. He was homeless, out on the streets. Did he say, oh, these principles don't work? I've been learning this. No, he dug deeper into that. He dug deeper and said, no, there's only one power, one presence that's infinitely good, is my good and here and now, that it is always pouring itself through me. He stayed true to that truth in the worst, well, not in the worst, but in a very difficult situation, and shifted and moved into this realm of prosperity that he had for the rest of his life. He said he never worried about money again because he got so deep into what the truth is. It wasn't just a shallow, conceptual, these are nice things to say that you can roll off the tongue. It got deep into his soul. That's what challenges do for us. Challenges take it from the surface and dig it deep into our soul. During World War II, he had some clients who had boys who were being sent off to war. And they were really distraught because they were doing a spiritual work and they did not want their sons to go. And they begged Joel to do healing work for them. Now, just to give you a sense of Joel Goldsmith's personality, like Ernest Holmes was very vivacious and out there. Joel was very quiet and sort of like methodical almost about his spirituality. So there was a guy, I think it was Walter Starkey, who he had a stomach ache. So my point is that Joel's calling was to be a healer, but not everybody who's called to know oneness was necessarily called to be a healer. And so Walter Starkey said he had a stomach ache, and he went to Swami Vivekananda, and he said, I had the most extraordinary experience. I just felt absolutely embraced in this pure, unconditional light and love. I've never felt so loved in all my life, but when I walked out, I still had a stomach ache. When I went to Joel Goldsmith, I didn't feel any of that love stuff, but the stomach ache was gone. It's all needed. Everyone, there's no right. But so that's, my point is that's what Joel's thing was. He used to have like 35 people come to him in a day. He would just sit in the stillness of the oneness, and people would come and have these healings happen. So they were asking them to heal their sons or to divinely protect them. And he said he would only on one, but he had a condition that he asked of each of the boys whom he was supporting in prayer while they were over there. And they had to agree to it in order for him to do that. And what he asked them is, every morning, the first thing you do when you wake up is pray for your enemy. They had to commit to pray for their enemy for the first thing they did every single day. And every one of them came back physically unharmed. They didn't know as much about emotional and mental harm, but physically unharmed. They were praying for their enemy. That's oneness. That's where we're not living from the divisive life. This presence that's noticing right now, it notices everybody and loves everybody. As ignorant or painful or whatever negative words we have about people that we do not like in this election, presence, this infinite presence, still loves them. It's untouched. It's untouched by all that negativity, all that ignorance, by all that drama. And so when we pray for our enemies, we're moving into alignment with that presence of awareness of who everyone on this planet really is, even when they can't see it themselves. And we might not see immediate demonstrations. We may or may not. But something in the internal world is shifting because we're doing that work. And we, at the very least, will feel it within our own souls. That shift within us where we're not constantly agitated by separation, by those awful enemies. I mean, there was a lot in World War II to say these people are awful, 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 awful people. And not just the leader, but all the people who followed the leader and followed through on his orders. These are awful people. People could go on and on and on and on about their awfulness, or we can shift inwardly and pray for them to wake up to who they really are, to be a beneficial presence for all beings. And they may not be ready to receive it, but we can be ready to give it all the time. Because as we're giving it out there, we're giving it to ourselves as well. Those places where we might think we're awful, we're healing the enemy within our own soul, with our own heart. This is the power of oneness. There's one last thing to be aware of. When Ernest Holmes and Joel Goldsmith lived, people got maybe one newspaper a day. Some people didn't even have money to pay for one newspaper a day. We are living in a world where we're having constant news. We're having this stuff, the physical realm, this manifestation realm, at us. Fear. You are not safe. You are not safe. Terrible things are happening. Maybe you're safe, but the people you love, they're not safe. There's people out in this world that are not safe, and those are facts. We're not going to pretend that's not true. We can't pretend in World War II horrible things happened. That was a fact, a very true fact, and it was horrible. We don't pretend those facts aren't true. But we have to step away from it to get to a deeper truth, and we can't do that in this world today because we're on our phones. It's so hard to get away. I've mentioned it before because I'm so enthralled by it, about Ernest Holmes talking about spending hours up when he goes at nighttime. We just spend hours in front of the fire contemplating truth. Fillmore. These are people who spend a lot of time. They didn't have news coming at them all the time. Fear, 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 fear. You're unsafe. Climate change. AI is going to destroy us, climate change, the elections, oh my gosh, the world is falling apart, the economy. There's so much fear, and we have access to it every day. One good thing about it, though, one good thing is because we have access to it, we see also how horrible it is. Like when Ernest Hemingway wrote about World War I and how awful it was, most people didn't have an idea of how bad war was. When George Floyd happened, we had the video of how awful and brutal that was. That changed things quickly and fast because we could see it, we can know it. And so there's the bad side of it, but there's a good side of like, there's some really, we can see the bad, and we can't just go, oh, this is okay, or let it go. Like, it demands, you know when we're saying the challenging demands us go to oneness, we're having, what this is happening is it's growing us. It's agitating us so deeply and so consistently that we have to just as deeply and consistently respond by going within to that oneness. It demands us to get so serious, not vaguely serious, but deeply and realistically serious every day. We have to be making these choices not just once, but over and over and over throughout our day to continually to remind us, oh, there's this noticing part. Oh, this part that's noticing through me, it's utterly free. No matter what's happening, I'm that presence now. It's a constant reminder to who and what we really are. Because the world's not going to change. Phones aren't going to go away. These news cycles aren't going to go. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. It might change, but not in the near future. So we have to turn around and make everything a tool for us to remember who and what we are. So as we're going through this election, let's just go 1 week by 1 week. This week, there's going to be a lot of fear out there. Shh, you should be afraid. That's what the idea is. Oh, no, this is free. No, no, no. Cancel, cancel. I'm not going there. We're done, again, not divine facts, but we're going to keep doing the work. Or I'm going to keep noticing, oh, but I can notice, I'm noticing, and this person that's noticing me has no fear about this. That part within me right now, right, you're feeling it? That noticing, that part that's noticing through you? That you can't see it, but it notices through and as you? No fear. No fear. No one has ever hurt, harmed, or endangered this presence. The metaphor I love is the sword that cuts through the air. It has zero impact on the air. Everything that's happening in the manifest world has no impact on this divine essence. And that's who we all are. That's what this oneness is. This is the power and the grace of the one. And that's what we're here for, yeah? And when we anchor in that, you see those little trees that come through the rocks, like there's a rock and there's a tree or concrete and a little plant comes through. My favorite is a sign that it's got a metal pole, but it's empty in the middle and a little tree went through it. And we continue individually, collectively, to practice this oneness every day, to re-choose and re-choose. We become that vehicle of light to move through us. It needs vehicles, and we get to be that vehicle. Every time we say there's nothing to be afraid of, there's a one power and one presence, and it is the power. It is the power of the universe. It is greater than all this other manifestation power. It's greater than all of it. And I am one with it. It is moving through me, and that's not just a concept. I can experience it now, this ever-present awareness, this oneness that is moving through and as me. And the more we do that, the more we allow those little green sprouts of new life, those little moments of beauty and light and grace and kindness and joy and love to pour through us, and we become a healing presence wherever we go. The manifest world might be unsafe, but God is never unsafe. And that's the place where we land. One power, one presence. Let's pray. So I just begin with gratitude. I am so grateful as we move into prayer that we are a community of conscious beings that knows that we know this one power and this one presence that is free of all human conditions. But that ultimately this is more real than the chairs upon which we sit. And as we are coming together in prayer within this memory, in this remembrance, and in this knowing, in this powerful knowing now, we are joining millions of people who also know this. This isn't just a few people knowing this. This is millions. And this collective consciousness of knowing that we know that there's one power and there's only one presence, that it is the source of all creation and yet is never absorbed or hurt by that creation, and that power and that presence is more intimate with us than our very breath. It is the absolute truth of who we all are right now. We don't have to struggle to reach it. It's already there. We don't have to do anything. It's already there. This one power in this, it's right here. It's responding to every one of our conscious prayer in this moment. We're coming collectively and saying yes to this power and this presence that notices and lives through and as us, each and every one of us individually. And today, and this day, and over this day, and over tomorrow, and over throughout this week, we continue to return and return yet again to this one power, this one presence, this one power, this one presence, where we are safe, where we are whole, where all that we've ever needed to be and needed to give is already there. We are the generators. We are the infinite vehicles of creation, of light, of joy, of peace, of harmony. It's here now. It's here now, and we are that yes. We are that yes. So whatever is happening in our life, in the cultural sense, in our country, whatever happening in our individual lives, these challenging moments that happen that are true facts, we tend to them with compassion, with love, and with care. And we meet them with the truth. We meet it with the absolute truth. There is only one power, one presence. It is infinite good, infinite peace, infinite love. We stand in this, we stand in this, we stand in this. And in this we are made whole. In deep abiding gratitude for this knowing, for this collective knowing, for the power of this collective knowing of oneness, and for standing in that truth all week long. I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, Divine One, as all of us. And in deep abiding gratitude, we let this word be now. We let it go. We trust and know that as this word is spoken, it truly is already done. In joy and freedom and light, we say together, and so it is. Amen and amen.